What's going on, guys? Alpha the Wizard back at it with another video. Today we are starting the meta history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And what this is I'm gonna go over in different episodes and cover the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks starting from 2004. So without further ado, we're gonna start with 2004 in Chaos Control format. Chaos Control was a very interesting time in Yu-Gi-Oh! It was the year right before the infamous GOAT format, and this is when we had a whole slew of really broken and insane cards, and I'm just gonna go ahead and showcase what some of these cards were and some of the card choices. This is a list that I really like from this format, and I would definitely play this today. So to start things off, we have Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End. This card is really broken. It did receive an errata in a reprint. However, this card back in the day, you could pay 1,000 life points to send all cards in both players' hands and fields to the graveyard and inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each one. So you can very easily OTK with this, and you can also send like a Witch of the Black Forest or a Sangan and search Yata-Lock, who, if you still have a summon, you can summon, attack your opponent, they have no cards, and they skip the draw phase. So yes, that was part of this format, was the whole Yata-Locking aspect. And then in addition to this, we also have Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. This is a card that a lot of people love and know, and it's basically similar to Chaos Emperor Dragon because it's what makes this deck chaos, because it's light and dark based. You have to banish a light and a dark to summon both of these cards. And then what would this deck be without Dark Magician of Chaos? This card is my personal favorite card from this era, and I really enjoyed playing this card. It did receive an errata as well, just because that just goes to show how broken these cards used to be. Dark Magician of Chaos back in the day, if you normal or special summoned it, you could just add a spell card from your graveyard to your hand. Now you have to wait till the end phase, but back then you could very easily abuse this card. And then also, we played Jinzo. Jinzo is really good this format because a lot of people are main decking Imperial Order, which can be problematic. So as a result, you can just summon Jinzo, and Jinzo just stops all of that. And Mirror Force and Eternal Tribute and a lot of popular cards. And the last big monster that we play is Air Knight Parshath. This card is very necessary this format just because the light card pool isn't very high, to be honest. So Air Knight just gives us another option for a light monster, but it also has a good recursion aspect to it as well. So Air Knight is just definitely necessary, and it also carried over into GOAT format. A lot of people play that in GOAT format as well. But yeah, so that's really it for all the big monsters. Now, to kind of just like touch on the smaller monsters that we would play in this deck, Tribe, Infecting Virus is a really good one. Basically because Sinister Serpent is in this format, and with Tribe Infecting Virus, you can just out really any big monster, a Jinzo, a Dark Magician of Chaos, whatever the case may be, even Spirit Reaper. Some people did play that. Now, in this particular build what I like about this is it's more focused on like the hand control aspect. So we play 2 White Magical Hat, and essentially, yes, this card might seem a little puny, it's kind of small, can't really get over a lot. Surprisingly, this format, if your opponent's setting a monster, it's usually with a weak defense unless it's Witch of the Black Forest. That might be like one of the only problems, or even a Recruiter. However, half the time when an opponent's setting in a monster this format, it's probably like Magician of Faith, a Jar card, or a Sangan. So half the time this can push through, but also this is a light monster and the light card pool isn't very high. So simply just being able to rip a card from their hand if you're able to get a direct attack is very strong in this format. Another card that we play is Mass Sorcerer. Now this card right here, you don't have to play it. It might seem very weak in theory, But there's so many like just blowout cards in this deck, like Dark Hole that just clear the board, and you can just summon Mass Sorcerer and just gain some advantage and set like a Wabaku or something. I don't know. So I'm not like huge on this card, or just simply setting this card. Half the time when they attack, you know, if they're weaker than 1500, they're probably gonna allow you to draw a card. So yeah, I played the Mass Sorcerer. I actually like it in this deck because you're able to stage your plays in a way to get advantage. Like you at least have access to a draw engine. But also, we play Witch of the Black Forest. Now, this is a card that also received an errata. It just goes to show how broken they all are. But back in the day, you could just add a monster with 1500 or less defense. And this comboed with Chaos Emperor Dragon, as I mentioned earlier, as well as Sangan. You have to play Sangan and Witch. This is all part of the Chaos strategy. So I opt to play Injection Fairy Lily. Now this card might seem like an odd choice because it's not a light or dark, but at the time, you know, the games were relatively slow, right? So this card boosts her attack by 3000. Yes, you have to pay 2000 to do it. However, it's really good in the OTKing aspect. So I personally like Injection Fairy Lily. Alright, and then I play Yata-Garasu. Sorry for the common, but this card, the secret rare print, is still pretty expensive. However, this card was basically the soul of this deck, as well as Chaos Emperor Dragon and Blackluster Soldier, because you just mainly wanted to clear the field and force them to skip their draw phase. And then I, in this particular build, play Magical Scientist. A lot of people don't really know about this card and the power behind it. Basically paying 1000 life points to summon a level 6 or lower fusion from your fusion deck. Yeah, it's so old school, but this card is really insane this format, especially playing Dark Magician of Chaos. And then also I play Sinister Serpent. This card just adds like a recursion aspect to the deck. Like you definitely want to be able to recycle cards and, you know, make sure that you don't run out of cards. And Serpent also synergizes with cards like Tribe Infecting Virus, and you know, it keeps coming back. And then moving on to flip effects. So I do play 3 flip effects this format. I play 1 Cyberjar, 1 Fiberjar, and a Magician of Faith. Now the reason why I play Fiberjar is I really like the aspect of a reset. When this card's flipped, you literally, each player shuffles their graveyard, fields, and hands into the deck and just draw 5 new cards. It's literally just a reset of the whole game. And it's quite nice, if I say so myself. Cyberjar is just really broken, especially because you have so many power spells in your deck and power traps too. So it's like seeing those over monsters sometimes is really good. Because if you can Cyberjar, set Cyberjar, creature swap your opponent, and attack into your own Cyberjar, you're gonna have so many more cards to work with because you're gonna draw cards like Delinquent Duo, Confiscate, or Forceful Sentry, things like that, or Imperial Order. So yeah, Cyberjar is really, really good. And Magician of Faith is just obvious because we run so many power spells. Like, just being able to recycle Delinquent Duo is just really, really good. But yeah, so that's it for the monsters. Now for the spells, we'll start with Forceful Sentry. This card's been banned since after this format. It's never came off the list. That just shows you how broken this is. You simply just look at your opponent's hand and shuffle a card. This card is really insane. But yeah, it's part of the whole hand control aspect as well as Delinquent Duo. And then we also have, you know, the trio card, Graceful Charity, and Pot of Greed. You know, these cards are just mandatory. Like, Pot of Greed, why wouldn't you play them? It's just a free 2 cards. You plus 1. Like, yeah. In Graceful Charity, you can just get the Chaos monsters in the graveyard a lot faster, so it's quite nice. And then we do play like more blowout cards like Regeki. Regeki is just so good because if they set a monster and it's like a flip effect, you know, and let's say they have like a Jinzo or something, you just Regeki the field and you don't have to worry about it. And then Dark Hole as well, you know, basically the same principle as Regeki, just so many blowouts for such a simple format. Why wouldn't you play them? And then we do play a Harpy's Feather Duster. Now, Harpies is pretty mandatory this format, even though the opponent is only going to be setting cards like Ring of Destruction, Mirror Force, maybe Wabaku, but Imperial Order is really prevalent this format, so there is justification for siding the Harpies. And then gotta play the Change of Heart. Change of Heart is just another aspect that helps you facilitate your Dark Magician and Chaos, as well as your Jinzo. And then we got Snatch Steal, which basically serves the same purpose. Snatch Steal is really good. And then, of course, we gotta play the Reborn cards. Monster Reborn, Premature Burial. And then, I do play 2 Mystical Space Typhoon. Now you might wonder, why do we play 2 Mystical Space Typhoon? Okay, so for one, in this format, as I mentioned, Imperial Order is very prevalent this format. So just having a card that's chainable to Order to be able to out it is very, very important. Not to mention, you know, a lot of people are playing Mirage of Nightmare. Being able to Mystical Space Typhoon that before they can get too much advantage is really essential as well. I do play 2 Scapegoat. Scapegoat's actually really, really good this format because it is a pretty slow format and there is a lot of set passing in the beginning and you're trying to stage your plays to OTK. Now, Scapegoat in tandem with Creature Swap is just really, really, really synergistic in this particular build because we play cards like Cyberjar, where we can just set Cyberjar and Creature Swap. Or, you know, if we end-phase Scapegoat, we can just give them a Goat token in attack mode. But yeah, so Creature Swap might seem like really like a neg card, but it's actually really good this format, especially since they're playing Recruiters. A lot of people are playing stuff like Shining Angel, Mystic Tomato, because they want to be able to get to their lights and darks. Now for the traps, I only play a few, not very many. We play Ring of Destruction. This card is just out a lot, so it's like you kind of have to play this one, this format. And then we also play Imperial Order. This card is like a pretty standard staple this format. A lot of people do play it just because there's so many power spells in the format. And then I do play Call the Haunted. Just that card's pretty self-explanatory because, you know, we want to be able to revive our Jinzo, Dark Magician and Chaos, Chaos Emperor Dragon, Blackluster Soldier after we've already summoned them. But then last but not least, I did get this idea from somebody, playing 2 Wabaku. Now, I really had to think about Wabaku as to why we would want to play Wabaku in this strategy. Now, if you really think about it, we're setting and passing quite a bit. We want to be able to salvage our Witch of the Black Forest or Sangan on field so that we can make a power play with Chaos Emperor Dragon and Yata-Lock them. So Wabaku helps to keep that monster in play because, you know, if you have to summon Witch and then use your Chaos Emperor Dragon, you've already used your normal summon. But we want, what I'm proposing is we should just leave the Witch or Sangan set. And then on the next turn, since they can't get rid of it, we can just Yata-Lock them. But yeah, so that's really it for the trap cards. Now, moving on to the fusions. Now, this wasn't called the extra deck back in ancient history. It was called the fusion deck. And just to give you an idea, it was unlimited. So you could play more than 15, as many as you wanted, and you could play 3 of each. So I would just recommend playing 3 of all these. But yes, so to start things off, Thousand Eyes Restrict, definitely a 3 of, mandatory. We do just play these just because we can. They don't really come up. The one that does come up is Flame Ghost. You know, if you Magical Scientist out this one, it's a dark. So technically you can bring these other ones out, but they're not as synergistic because, you know, Flame Ghost is the dark out of them. But then for level 4s, we also have Darkfire Dragon. This is the one you would summon level 4 wise more than anything, so definitely play 3. Carbanola Warrior just because we can. Reaper on the Nightmare is basically a Spirit Reaper. It can attack directly and rip a card from your opponent's hand. It's really good, but it dies really easy as well, this format. So it's not something I always would tend to make. I do play Flame Swordsman. Rest in peace to my brother Jordan. He loved Joey Wheeler, and Flame Swordsman was his favorite monster, so I just play it for a tribute. And then I do play Dark Balter the Terrible. It's a really good card this format, because if you can get Dark Balter to stick on the field with like a Metamorphosis, you can negate any normal spell card, and there's so many good ones this format. So Balter is really good. And then we do play the Fiend Skull Dragon. As I said though, I would play 3 of all these. A lot of these come up quite often with Magical Scientists. And then 1 Metal Dragon. You don't really have to have it, but you know, we have it just because we can. And then Ryu Senshi. This is one that does come up a lot with Scientists. Definitely a really good card. I would max out on these. But yeah, so that really does it for 2004 Chaos Control. In the next episode, I'm gonna go over my traditional GOAT deck. It's pretty standard, so make sure you tune into the next episode and leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below for more content.